let's do a real
California, and a new
live
showdown
react.
over the Trump administration's crackdown on immigration. ICE agents raided 2 farms yesterday near Los Angeles, and at one of them, workers were lined up against a wall. Neighbors and others came out to protest. ICE agents used smoke canisters and what appeared to be tear gas on the crowd. This all happened in Camarillo, California, north of Los Angeles. Carter Evans is there. Carter, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. This is the entrance to the farming complex here, and actually relatives have been out here all night. They're in cars nearby right now. They're hoping that loved ones may still be hiding inside, and we've actually heard that a couple...
That's crazy, dude. Wait, first of all, why is this on DND but it's still giving me notifications on my Apple tags and shit? That's number one. Number two, okay. Hold on, let me turn this off as well.
Came out overnight. Now, over the last few months, actually a couple of months, we've had a lot of activity.
I thought Trump was, like, I guess, like, what ended up happening is, like, because Trump said he was going to scale back on the ICE deportations on the, like, the farms and stuff, because it's, like, a bad look, and also, I assume, like, a lot of the agriculture boosters came to him and were like, dude, what the fuck? Doing? Like,
yeah, like our people are afraid to come to work.
Yeah, like you're ruining, you're gonna cripple the economy.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, we're not gonna do it to hospitality, we're not gonna do it to leisure, we're not gonna do it to the farms. But then, like, I think Stephen Miller, like, obviously still wants to make a big show of force. So I can totally see, like, this cynical calculation that they engaged with, where they were like, oh, we'll go to, like, a weed farm, even though it's legal, right? Like, so it's not like, but it's like less desirable, it's like less important than like tomatoes, right? So we'll just like go and hit a weed farm and we'll try to hit that quota, but you know, it'll be less defensible. But they don't realize, I think, like, the problem here is that, and given the Gallup poll as well, what a lot of people in the administration don't realize, because they're also bubbled in, is that people don't give a shit what these guys are doing. Like, they just don't like that, you know, heavily militarized units of federal law enforcement agents are dropping in with, like, helicopters to mass arrest a bunch of non-citizens and sometimes citizens alike. Like, that is a gruesome image that Americans thought that they with, but they don't actually with.
What is the polling on with him on immigration now at this point?
Well,
I know he was going underwater.
Gallup is more than underwater. Underwater underwater is like, I'm like going for a little swim. Like, he is now in the Marianas Trench.
I'll tell you the exact numbers are. So I have it pulled up. So, and this is exactly what happened in the last Trump administration as well. He was like, oh, I'm going to do child separation or whatever. And then, of course, when it starts happening, people are like, oh, that's kind of gross.
And naturally, with an even more intense policy that is even more, you know, like more violent and jarring, like, the effect is even more dramatic.
Yeah, so new Gallup poll shows Trump approval on immigration is at 35% approval, 62% disapproval. Okay? Record high approval of immigration in general, 79% approval of immigration, and 17% disapproval overall, and 78% of people support a pathway to citizenship, which is +8 from 2024, which means 70% of people approve a pathway to citizenship, conditional amnesty, even in 2024, when not a single Democrat was making this counter message. And I literally talked at the DNC with Democratic staffers and with Democratic politicians, including Ro Khanna, in that interview that I had with him, where I straight up said to his face, I was like, there's always two options, and Americans have always historically overwhelmingly favored the pathway, the more peaceful pathway when it comes to immigration, which is conditional amnesty for the tens of millions that are living here, that have been living here, that have been contributing to the American economy in meaningful ways, as opposed to mass deportation. But when the Democrats don't actually present those two options, as though the second option doesn't exist, and is constantly led by the Republicans on this issue, and the discourse is dominated by the Republican mentality and the calculated hysteria that they create, the panic that they create, that's just racist as fuck. By the way, it's just pure white nativism. Then, yeah, people think, I guess this is it. I guess immigrants are constituting a national security threat. And it's especially bad when the Democrats also lean into that. They lean into that hysteria, even though that is just pure hysteria. There's no factual basis for this underlying assumption that migrants, undocumented and documented alike, are contributing to the crime rate in a significant fashion. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite is true. Undocumented migrants are actually responsible for a lower amount of crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. When you add documented non-citizens into the equation as well, oof, the number is not even something you can consider. So the notion that there are 20 million undocumented migrants on U.S. soil and they're doing so many crimes, like, it was always a lie. And the fact that no one counter-messaged against this lie from the Democratic Party side, and then even adopted that framework and tried to create a legal solution that revolved around a more militant border policy, was a spectacular failure. It was appeasement towards fascist, racist sentiment, not born out of any real desire to solve any real problem Americans were experiencing, but instead, the only outcome of that was they normalized this idea with their own base of voters as well, that trust them, that listen to them.
I have to imagine a chunk of that majority who are against it, even if it's not for particularly humanitarian, reasons, that, as you said before, they're worried about the economic effects of it as well, and they're like, especially the closer you get to the border, the more Republicans you'll find who don't like the program, because they're saying you're undermining how we get stuff done. And maybe they also have a moral or human element to them as well. But
yeah, there's a lot of there are a lot of Trump voters who have been interviewed at this point, where they just say, like, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. This thing that I voted for.
I would also add that there's a similar kind of reaction even among like libs who had perhaps like seeded this issue, mentally or whatever, that they had thought like, oh yeah, we got to do something about the border. And now it's like, all right, well, the consequence of that is that ICE is doing, or in the federal or National Guard doing these ridiculous, troop maneuvers in MacArthur Park. And as a consequence, like, the undocumented labor that's also part of, let's say, household labor, that's, watching the kids and so on, that is not just like bought and paid for by Republicans. It's also part of, I think, what is demonstrating to people, to your point about how, like, this is just how stuff gets done. Like, that extends to, like, the corporate, to the C-suite that is looking at the numbers from the top level, seeing how it affects, like, the economic bottom line, but also to many, probably millions of Americans in some way are touched by this right now in a way that they perhaps wouldn't have anticipated, because this was just a discourse object through the TV until Trump got his mitts on the policy levers.
Yeah. The other thing I will say, aside from like business owners who are like, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. I mean, I've talked to people who have undocumented relatives, and people that actually voted for Donald Trump with undocumented relatives, and part of that equation is quite literally because they just did not think or did not hear enough from anyone that Donald Trump was going to absolutely do this. Because it's not like he didn't signal that he was going to do this. He kept saying falsely that undocumented migrants that are doing crimes are out of here.
Yeah.
But a lot of people heard, okay, well, there are some criminal undocumented migrants, probably, right? Like, yeah, he's just going to get the criminals out. I guess, like, Joe Biden wasn't actually dealing with the criminals.
Right.
But the underlying notion there was so stupid that, like, especially with no pushback whatsoever, like, the Democratic responsibility here is so severe, I don't want to let them get away with this. Because they could have just been like, what do you mean? Like, so you think when someone of Guatemalan descent, like, commits a crime, a heinous crime, like a rape or something, you think the police, they catch him, and then they go, oh, we're under the Biden leadership, so sorry, we can't prosecute you because you're undocumented?
This was the foundational stuff for Trump, like, meaning that, like, this was foreseeable from the jump. Like, with the bloody shirt that Trump wrapped the launch of his campaign around was the murder of a woman in San Francisco, a
Yeah.
young white girl, by an immigrant who had previous criminal convictions.
Yeah.
And like Kate Steinle was, I believe, her name. I think her parents spoke at the Republican convention in 2016.
Yeah.
And you know, which is just to say that like the idea that this was some secret winning issue that he had hit on and that like the Democrats hadn't had an answer for. Like, this is more or less what he'd campaigned on for 8 years.
Yeah, also, it's what the Republicans have always campaigned on. It's not like I spoke on this. I have never not spoken on this. This is like definitely a very important issue for me, but like I spoke on this in the month of February and April in 2021 when Joe Biden had just assumed office. And one of the first things that happened was the Haitians that were crossing the border for TPS to get asylum status, and they were getting whipped with the reins on horseback Customs and Border Patrol officers, right? And that image, a lot of people got very frustrated by, understandably. And at that time I said, look, if the Biden administration doesn't address the inhumanity of immigration by actually following through on the promises that they had made, that they'd won on, the first 100 days included conditional amnesty, included ending the child separation policy and like the deportation system that they had, and immediately hiring more immigration officers and beefing up the immigration courts to expedite the process of paperwork for all these people that were coming in. If they don't do this and then actively message that they're doing this because that's what the people wanted, the media loves being contentious from a right-wing framework whenever there's a liberal in charge. Yeah. And the Republicans are never going to let this go. They're going to make this the single most important issue. And lo and behold, they didn't do that, of course, predictably. And they just kind of were very wishy-washy on it while simultaneously doing a lot of right-wing stuff. And it turned into this major issue of consequence because right-wingers dominated discourse on this, and they led the conversation on this issue, creating a totally panicked, hysteric narrative that undocumented migrants were doing crimes in this country.
And the Democrats played Mr. Me Too on this one. Like Kamala. Remember that we used the clip in our second season where Kamala says she's speaking, I believe, in Guatemala, saying do not come.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to discourage. It's like, okay, so we're gonna poison and destroy this like part of the world which like sits like way down near the bottom of like the value chain of like wealth creation or whatever. They get to keep none of it for themselves, and we're gonna tell them like, well, now that your places are all horribly unstable and unsafe to live, off and die.
Well, they're most comfortable in the status quo. It's the same, like, it's not exact. It's connected to immigration, but it's the same thing that happened with Cuba, where Trump, not only undid the Obama opening with Cuba normalization, he also slapped on 200 more sanctions on them, and then Biden got in, didn't touch it
until the last day,
and then Trump just came in again.
That was so disgusting. Like,
and so the entire policy toward Latin America, which of course does include immigration, the Biden people were just happy to not have to talk about it for 4 years.
Yeah.
Oops, now it's time for an election, and he didn't talk about it for 4 years.
You didn't talk about it for 4 years. You quietly also accelerated the ICE funding, as you always do, year over year.
Yep.
And
Yeah, you said
and obviously, like, Biden was a fantastic failure on different fronts, right? Like, he was not the dynamic communicator that like any party needs. Like,
no. I wouldn't go that far.
But he was a great piece of ass.
Yeah, he was sexy.
He looked good.
He looked really good. When the eye filled up with blood. Something
else is filling up with blood.
Yeah, I was about to say, that was when I knew.
Yeah, I was horned up. I was horned up the entire time. You're right about that.
But it's not enough.
Yeah.
Just
not,
posting
and he
on
was
how
laying
hot
pipe.
he
was
that.
Laying pipe.
Well, didn't they spread a rumor that like he was
It was in
having
the book.
more sex?
It was in the Jill Stein book, Dr. Jill Stein book. Right around the time when everyone was like, Biden is so old.
Dr. Jill Biden.
Not Jill Stein. Sorry.
I was like, wait, Jill Stein and Joe Biden?
Well, Jill Stein is also, well, maybe, who knows?
I mean, I'm sure it was everybody.
He is a sexual dynamo. They were probably doing orgies in there.
Yeah, like somebody read those studies that are like, old people tend to have sexual relations more frequently. And they were like, you know what this means? If we tell lots of people that like Joe Biden is like consensually rubbing on you know, on his wife and whatnot, then like that's going to make people think that he's tight and cool.
Yeah.
And it worked, and that's why we live in the good timeline.
Yeah. So, but going back to Camarillo, I think the regular Republican commentators, I think, are trying to do the haha. Well, this is a weed farm. We got you, silly libs. Like,
Right.
weed is not produce. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. One, it's legal, and two, it doesn't matter that these guys are working at a weed farm.
People see
and-
the image of it.
Yeah.
They hate it.
And the people
Or people
who
just
own the
don't
weed farm are
want-
probably Republicans.
Yeah,
too.
that too.
That's,
for
what I,
sure.
that's what I mean. It's the business.
For sure.
Exactly.
It's the business of it all. It's the.
Well, and like, I mean, this to me connects to, you told me about this yesterday, like the who's the guys wearing all the tinfoil on their heads, being like,
Oh, yeah. We're gonna talk about that in a
Yeah,
second too.
like,
The
they're, like-
Andrew Schultz.
Yeah, so like there's like a whole bunch of like, you know, more right-coded like comedians, influencers who are now also like taking the Epstein. I think the Epstein thing is like just giving them an opportunity to be like, well, I'm a dumbass. I was wrong. I bet on that or
Yeah.
whatever. And so it applies here too. Like the weed farm thing is another instrument. Like I think the immigration stuff. I mean, Rogan has already himself said that like this is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah,
going into
there was a
workplaces.
report that was leaked to the media. I think maybe it was Joe Rogan, but I don't know if he has like a PR team that's like that smart about it. But there was a report leaked that like Joe Rogan is in Trump's ear about like scaling back the mass deportations, like,
Oh my God.
and it might have been Trump's team actually, because they're more clever and sophisticated when it comes to PR stuff like
And
this.
they'd be happy to lie too.
Yeah.
Like they'd be happy to say he had a phone call with Rogan and this is what it was about. And like,
Yeah,
who knows?
but basically,
Bert Kreischer is educating Trump about.
yeah. I mean, that is the unfortunate reality. Like, we do
Yeah.
live in a world where that kind of stuff does happen.
Tony Hinchcliffe seen leaving the Oval Office today after consulting with the president about the ongoing negotiations for the nuclear treaty with Australia.
I mean, Kid Rock saw the Iran attack plans, right? So, like,
I mean, it would be kind of fun to be like, you know, like to the guys you want to impress, like, hey, like Bruce Springsteen, come here, check this shit out, and it's like,
yeah,
you know, 3 million war crimes.
But
yeah,
you think
we got to get Theo Vaughn to talk to him about this Israel stuff. Pack it up, you know what I mean?
Hey, President, I'm just not so sure about this anymore.
Yeah.
So, but you think that people are just visually disgusted by it, no matter what the nature of the farm was or whatever sector of the economy is being rounded up. It's not playing either way. is what
Yeah,
you-
because people, they don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, the value judgment here does not revolve around, like, I think maybe they like hear the liberals talk about like, well, immigrants are our landscapers. Like, why are you, you know, taking away our nannies or whatever? And it's like, no, dude, people just don't like their neighbors getting packed up for no reason. Like, people don't like human beings that they live around getting apprehended for zero crimes. Okay?
Well, the central, contradiction in the mind of a right winger, I'm sure there's a strong plurality of them that pretend they care about big government but like seeing people rounded up by the secret police. But I think there's others who actually do find that to be a strange tension in their mind, and now they're seeing it. Now they're seeing what it means to actually, get what you want or get what you said you wanted when you voted for Trump. And it isn't so easy for them to hold two thoughts in their head at the same time, I guess.
Yeah. What else was I gonna say about this? There was some other things I wanted to talk about here on the issue. I have like I have a compilation of quotes that I just like looked at earlier. This is from February 5th, 2024. In a new statement, Speaker Johnson, Steve Scalise, GOP Majority Whip, and Elise Stefanik have a new statement on the Senate supplemental. It reads in part, I said, Democrats love pushing bad policy and bad politics. All this bill does is normalize the white nativist position that immigration is actually a matter of national security. Republicans are always going to be able to out-racist the Dems. That's from February last year. From August last year, throughout the Trump admin, there was consistent counter-messaging from the Dems against his insane anti-immigrant lies. When Biden came into office, they never counter-messaged against the same reactionary lies Republicans kept repeating. And the result of that is how the 2020 public image on immigration was more pro-immigration than ever before, and the 2024 public is more anti-immigrant than at any time in the last 2 decades. And another one from June. Brilliant move by the Dems to try and repeat a grand bargain scheme on immigration with nothing in return, only to have it nuked by the right and complain that the Republicans aren't sufficiently anti-immigrant. They are. You will never outflank the GOP on racist immigration policy.
I forgot about that. It's like
He didn't even build the wall.
They did it on Iran too, where it's like Trump always chickens out on starting World War III. We're doing is overlooking the eyeglasses.
Let's make our line a dare of the guy who hates being made to appear small.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah, here's a Democratic wins media. Okay, breaking. President Biden just slammed Republicans for failing to take action on the border. Because of this, President Biden announced an executive order to deny asylum requests for immigrants who cross the border illegally. Retweet so all Americans see. To which I responded with, breaking. President Biden enacts Trump's white natives immigration policy that he ran against only 4 years ago. That is this...
I take back what I said. How they didn't talk about it. They actually talked about it in the worst way possible.
Yeah, they made it worse. It's like it reminds me of like when how like Hillary in 2016. It turns out that like some of their operation ended up like turning out people who just like voted for Trump. And how in this case it's like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about immigration. We're just going to talk about it in the way that actually raises the salience of the issue for our opponents entirely.
Yeah. Yep. And not only that, but you look like a fraud. You look like you lied.
Yep.
You look like you lied for the past 8 years when you tell your audience this issue that we counter messaged against initially for the past 8 years, saying that it was racist to be in favor of a border wall. We were lying. We like the border wall. Trump doesn't want to build a border wall, actually. At that point, if you're in the margins, if you're in the middle somewhere where you're like, I don't really know what the f is going on, but I see images of homeless people and I associate that with crime immediately, and then people tell me that that's born out of immigration and the flow of immigration into the country, I'm a little scared that people speak languages that I don't understand. All of those things combined, and then they hear like, well, these guys, these Democrats, they said that this was racist, and now are they racist? Like, what's happening?
I think there's also this ties to like the general like coarsening of the discourse, like the fact that it's now like a mainstream Republican talking point to be like the Zoran eat with his hands, like a dirty Indian, and it's like this is like it is truly like it's like like when you see the idea that like defending human difference is like part of just like what it means to like like that's,
be an American,
be a human, be a person, that like you know we exist with other people who don't do all the same things we do, and that's fine. In fact, it's nourishing for the spirit.
And once again, the Democrats are actually united with the Republicans, although they would say they're not, in attacking that guy, in attacking that particular candidate. So why would anyone look at the Republican treatment of Mamdani or the threats to deport him and think it's out of the mainstream? The Democrats are talking about how he's a terrorist.
I'm gonna guy Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy, July 10th, 2025. This is from today. I'm gonna have a seizure reading this. Chris Murphy takes a post from Variety that was talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, saying both parties are to blame for LA ICE raids. This is a result of Democrats and Republicans not being able to come together on immigration reform, and so that's what needs to be done so that you don't have to go and start arresting people in the first place. So we know who's in this country and who's working here, who has the temporary working permit, who has the permanent working permit. For decades now, they have been avoiding the subject because it's an advantage to both parties to not do it. So they're all political hacks, party hacks, rather than public servants. Arnold Schwarzenegger is right.
Yes.
Even though he's like a little wishy-washy on this because he just says immigration reform instead of directly identifying the issue at heart, which is that undocumented and documented migrants, the only difference between them is a piece of paper. Okay? When he says immigration reform, that's what he's referencing. Make no mistake. So he's 100% correct on this. Chris Murphy's response, on the other hand, is expected and horrifyingly bad, as always. The Democrats and Republicans line is bull. I wrote a bipartisan bill last year that would have stopped all asylum seekers from being released into the country.
Oh.
It gave POTUS emergency power to shut down the border. It put billions in the border security. Trump killed it.
So his argument is that, no, I am as evil as the Republicans. Arnold is wrong. Like, he's like arguing against the idea that he didn't do enough to be...
It's so funny.
I'm losing my mind at this. I'm losing my mind at this.
I'm helping.
Chris Murphy also was like, he has obviously ambitions for higher office, right? He obviously has ambitions for higher office. He was one of the first to be like, maybe we need to do this like left-leaning populism stuff
I'm sorry,
a little
what
bit.
If, what if we went on podcasts?
Yeah, but it's this instinct right here